Hi, this is Joe from Sonscape Interlock, and you're listening to the S.M.E podcast.
You are now listening to the next great small business podcast. Welcome to the S.M.E Stories podcast, where it is all about small businesses in Canada. And here's your host, Ken Alfred.
Hey everybody, thanks for downloading the show. We got a great episode today. We have Joe Galluzzo from Sonscape Interlock and Landscape Solutions. So just a little bit of background of Sonscape. Sonscape Interlock and Landscape Solutions is a company that specializes in custom, high-quality hardscape and landscape products and services. They have over 20 years experience and take tremendous pride in their work. They currently service York Region, Toronto, and surrounding areas. Now, the funny thing is I've known Joe since my personal training days back in 2000 and probably 7, 8 maybe. We were all working at the same gym. Joe himself actually was not just a personal trainer, but also a fitness consultant. So fitness consultants were the ones that they would do your assessment, your fitness assessment. So Joe has great skills in sitting down with the clients, talking to them, trying to establish what their needs and wants are and proposing the right solution for it. So this works really well with Sonscape Interlock and Landscape Solutions. So he's got some great stories that you're going to want to hear, especially for those wanting to get started into the landscaping space. So sit back and absorb. All right, guys, we have Joe with us from Sonscape Interlock and Landscape Solutions. Joe, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, living the dream, like they always say, but I still don't know what that means. So
I don't either.
That, or I can't remember what's another phrase when someone says, "Oh, how are you?" I'm like, I can't even think of the phrase. Never mind. So, anyways, so Sonscape Interlock and Landscape Solutions. What is your story?
Mostly Aurora and Newmarket, but we do all of York Region. We've been doing this for like over 20 years. I started the company in 2016. I like to cater towards the more custom, artistic, interlock, like hardscape, landscape, softscape. We do a little bit of everything. The only thing we don't do is maintenance. It's just the hardscape building. It's like landscape construction.
What is the difference between the hardscape, softscape, and landscape? Because I think most people think, oh, I need to get something done to my yard or my garage. Oh, it's going to be landscape. Can you define the different ones we just talked about?
Well, softscape is more like grass, soil, plants, shrubs, trees. And then hardscape is all the stonework, armor stone, flagstone, stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, no problem. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we got that understood there. So when you use those terms, people know what they're talking about. So, sorry, continue with your story. So you said you started about 20 years ago. You're more on the custom side and the different areas you're seeing. So what are the capabilities of what you guys can do?
We do driveways. We can pretty much remodel like everything around the outside of your house. So we do driveways, walkways, gardens. We work around pools. We regrade properties with topsoil and sod. We'll do gardening. Like we can do some planting as well. We also do a lot of people have a lot of houses have issues on when you walk outside on the porch. Sometimes the concrete integrity is not the greatest. We can fix that up and make it look nice and face it with nice flagstone that has like a nice rock face on it. Yeah, it's pretty much anything that is interlocking and landscaping. We pretty much will do.
Okay, no, that's great to hear, Joe. And just so people understand as well, so what was it about getting into this space that really drew you? What drew you to the landscaping, the hardscape? What brought you into this industry?
So I'm pretty artistic. I like to draw, and I'm pretty physical as well. And I feel like the two put together, it's pretty much what I'm passionate about. I like being physical. I like being artistic. I like dealing with new people, like talking to new people. I like the way stonework looks. I'm really into stonework. And I was taught how to do this from a young age. My father started doing it, so I pretty much learned it from him, and I worked for him for a long time, and then I started my own business.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. So it's funny when you mentioned that you were artistic, and then the first thing you think of is, hardscape and landscape, because I guess most people think that, oh, what do you mean artistic? It's just you put stone on the ground, but it's not. It's more to it than that, right? Like you said, there's that vision that you're trying to work with a client to try to figure out what exactly they're looking for, and trying to put it on. And it's one of those things that honestly, once you finish a job, you can literally, as they say, literally step back and take a look at it, right?
Yeah, it's like anything. If you look at a car and you look at how it's designed, some people might look at it and be like, "Ah, it's just a car, it's a box with wheels." But it takes a lot of engineering and a lot of artwork, a lot of planning and design to create that vehicle. You know, some people look at it a certain way, right? With the landscaping, you can tell the difference between a company that would not have the artistic eye and a company that does. As also, you can also tell if somebody's using proper materials and doing the due diligence with going deep enough with the base and keeping it so it's solid and it lasts through the frost, because that's like a big thing. What we do is you got to make sure that it lasts a long time without it heaving. Like, you're going to get a little bit of that, but that's another part of it that got to really make sure you cross your T and dot your I's with.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I'll make the story real fast. So we got some landscape. This is just, I guess, the landscaping done on our property probably a couple of years ago. I went to some local person. I didn't really know who they were. I guess, just Google it and just did it. And they did the job okay, because all we were saying is, okay, because we had inherited, when we bought this property probably back in 2014 or so, the front yard, it looked like, I would probably say it looked like a swamp in terms of like these really big plant flowers. It looks like it's almost covering the walkway. So we decided to get someone to clean it up. So they pulled out a lot of this stuff. And then we had like a few, I guess some simpler, like perennial type of plants that, they're not going to grow too wild and, they'll survive the winter. So I asked them to pay, I paid a few $100s. Okay, can you guys, dig this out, remove all these dead weeds or remove all these things and put in these new stuff. And they did it, and they covered it with mulch. And my assumption was, and this is my mistake on my end, I thought they would have put some type of, fabric. I guess I don't know what you call it, landscape fabric or something like that, where it's just to prevent from weeds from going through, growing from underneath. Is that right? So I thought that they were going to do that. And then I started noticing that there's a lot more weeds growing on this side of on where we just had it landscaped within like a year or two. And I'm looking and I push all the mulch back because it was covering it. So I push all the mulch back. It's just bare soil. And I'm like, wait a minute, where is the fabric that I asked for? So, it's something that, you can, like, I think what Joe was saying as well, is that you really got to make sure you're using the right materials. And I guess this particular company that we hired did not use the right materials. And then we were stuck with, okay, now we got to find a way to have to pull out the weeds all the time or do something else, right?
Yeah, that's the challenging part about doing this kind of business. If you're passionate about it and you want to do things correctly, is pricing includes stuff that you don't see. And sometimes people don't see what goes into the job. And you can get somebody that comes in and do a job in a day or two when you're not home and you can't see the process.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just kind of rushing it and just to get to the next one. And that does happen. There's a lot of that. And I understand from the homeowner's perspective, they want to save money. But you really got to look into, I think when you get a landscaper, unless you're trying a new company, you should always have referrals of different jobs. Like, I mean, I have customers that ask me and I can send them to customers' houses. I have customers that are okay if somebody comes and takes a look. We always make sure that we can give them some kind of reference, because it is an investment. And it's also like a safety thing too. Like, when you're building a structure outside somebody's house, you want to make sure that it's designed and built properly so people aren't slipping off of it and falling and there's nothing protruding. You want to make it so it's aesthetic, but also functional as well.
Yeah, tripping hazards, especially if you're doing like porches or stairs or something like that, right?
Yeah, and I've seen that a lot when we go and do, like, when we remodel something or renovate something, you'll see that there's the previous contractor, or just over time, things kind of fall apart. Older materials, people used to use blocks for steps, and those, because they're all separate entities from each other, they tend to heave, and then the caps on them heave, and it's better just to have a solid step, which is, everything's, evolution, everything is evolving. So now they have like solid steps, and then there's natural steps that are just one solid step that you put in. And as long as you got the base and you put it in level, it lasts a lot longer than the blocks that base. And they look a lot nicer too. They're more modern looking.
Right, right. So then tell me, so now we're recording this in March right now. The weather is starting to get nicer now. So how, like for this year in 2022, what kind of growth and sales growth are you looking for this year, Joe?
I'd like to double everything. I got more guys. So, I mean, that's the biggest thing for me. It's not necessarily just the sales. It's like what I can do. So like, I don't want to take on too much, but now I've got a couple of guys that are good. And then I have like a couple of guys that can come on that are really good as well, but just kind of like part-time. So I actually can service a lot more. So I'd like to do 1.5 times what I normally do, to be honest. That's what I'm aiming for, really.
No, that's great to hear. I mean, it's almost like a good problem to have, right, Joe? It's one of those things. If you were telling me, well, Ken, I don't know about growth this year, we're kind of struggling, then I'm like, okay, that's a bit of a thing. But the problem that you have is a nice problem to have. It's like, I'm not worried about sales. I want to make everything bigger. We have more people so we can service more clients. And I'm like, that's great. So for some of those people now, when you look into the actual landscaping business now, what is kind of, in your experience, what's been the biggest expense you've kind of been seeing over the last few years?
Well, right now, the material is going up quite a bit. It's gone up a lot in the past 6 months. It's gone up quite a bit because of the cost of the shipping containers. That's what I was told. It's the cost of the shipping containers. And then on top of it going up as much as it has, it's going up another 10% in the next month. So my customers that I'm servicing in spring right now, I'm trying to get as many of them as I can and save them as much money as I can with the old prices right now. So I've been talking to a few of my customers and we're ordering things ahead of time, which quite a few landscape companies are doing that from what I've seen.
The story over the last year or so was when like lumber prices were really high. So, people would go to Home Depot or whatever to try to buy wood and it was so expensive. But the material you're talking about too is like a lot of the interlocking and the stones you're talking about as well. That's also gone up, you said, right?
Yeah, but it's still cheaper than lumber. So like when the lumber price went up, like a lot of people were calling us saying we were going to do a deck, but we can do, because like most of the time when you do stonework, it's the most expensive thing you can do outside compared to like wood.
Mm-hmm.
And it like most people like stonework more than a deck. Like they just like it because it looks more upscale to have like a nice interlocking pad with nice looking pavers and a nice border. Like it looks nicer. So last year people were calling me and telling me it's too expensive to do lumber and we want to do stonework. I've never had that happen before last year because the lumber was always cheaper than the stone. And I still think, I don't know what lumber is right now, but I still feel like it's cheaper than stonework still. Because you can still it's gone up. Like the interlocking has gone up. It's more the natural stone that's really gone up. That's the one that's like jumping up like crazy. Is the natural stone. The interlocking is different. But now that the cost, I think, is going to be gas. I think gas is going to be the biggest thing. Like just to fill a 1,500 truck is like $160, depending on the size of your truck. And then if you get a one that's one up from that, you're almost like you're into like 200. That's with gas. It's like a lot more money to fill everything up. Even the machines like put diesel in the Bobcat.
Oh, I see.
And gas in all the machines.
No, that's good to hear. Because I mean, I guess when I was first listening, I thought you were talking about like the cost of gas to have everything shipped to your site or whether it's you guys picking up the material or the company's delivering it to your location, wherever the job site is. The cost of gas. I totally forgot about the Bobcat, right? So that machine that helps dig and all that sort of stuff also needs gas as well. So yeah, fuel prices are really crazy nowadays, right? So I guess it really translates to not just the regular daily driver, but it affects a lot of businesses specifically, especially yours.
Oh yeah, especially when you're running machinery and stuff. It's gets expensive, and then when you got to really, with this business too, another expense that when you're newer, I know I made this mistake when I was like, newer into the business. You can sometimes have one job in one area and then you're like 10 kilometers away and you try to plan them at the same time. And it's better to have all your jobs in the same area that you're working on if you're going to do more than one at once. I like to just do one job at once and go to the next one. I don't like being in the middle of 3 jobs. And that's something that homeowners get really frustrated with if you have more than one job going because you're always bouncing around.
Hey, do you need an error-free website? Do you need transcription that's accurate and on time? Would you like to remove noise from your video or audio recording? Do you need a spokesperson for your business? If so, we can help. At Northway Capital Group, we are happy to announce that we are now providing website testing services, audio transcriptions, and audio cleanup, as well as spokesperson services. We would love to help you on your next project. Contact us for more information at northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com. Do you have a small business story to share? The S.M.E Stories podcast is looking for entrepreneurs to share their tales of success, failure, and everything. If you're interested in being a guest on our show or know someone would be a great fit, please contact us at northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com. That's northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com. What people don't realize that, I think, especially those who haven't done a lot of renovations, is that I guess maybe when they see some of those those renovation shows on TV, they're like, oh wow, look, they were going to get all this work done, and it seemed, and they managed to cram it into 30 minutes. But they're like, oh yeah, they probably just took them maybe a few days job to do that. But then what they don't understand is that for a lot of these, even these renovation shows, depending on which show it is, they're usually work on several jobs at once, right? And I guess some of the practice that most, I guess, contractors do is, to try and, like you said, schedule multiple jobs relatively within the same kind of area. So they're not and then they're doing a little bit here, a little bit there, and a little bit there, because I guess it depends. Unless you have an entire crew that can literally do everything from A to Z right then and there, you might have to be waiting on another subcontractor to do a certain function of the job, right?
Yeah. With us, we try to just specify with just landscaping and interlock. I used to do get into paving and stuff, but I just kind of stick with what I do. Like, I just like to stick with the interlocking, the stuff that we specialize in, and the landscaping. If somebody needs to resod their property, we'll do that too. That's the first job this year I'm doing. We're facing a porch. It's a big job, so there's a whole bunch of things we have to do there. But yeah, I always try to make sure that we're doing everything one job at a time. If we do more than one job, it's just excavating. We'll excavate 2 at once or 3 at once, and then we'll let them settle.
Right. Those type of things. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. I just don't like bouncing around, especially when you have to cut and do intricate stuff. You need to put your full focus on it. And if you're focusing on the cutting and the intricate part of the job, your focus gets shifted if you have all these other jobs, because it becomes stressful. And I don't think when you're stressed out, and human beings are not good at multitasking. That's we already know that we're not capable of doing that. You're better off focusing on one thing. And I like to be on the job all the time. So if I could leave a couple of guys on the job, but I prefer to just be on the job the whole time and just have all of us on the job at once, finishing the job and then go to the next one.
Right. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, so let's talk about social media here for a second. So, this is not a social media podcast. How do you do your social media for your business, and what tools do you currently use right now?
Right now, so last year it was crazy. I got so much work off of Facebook, and it wasn't even me really, I didn't even advertise on Facebook. It was just people were putting me on the groups, and then I would go to somebody's house and I would get the jobs. And a lot of my jobs last year came off Facebook, and I still get a lot of stuff off Facebook. I do have an Instagram account as well. I have Facebook and Instagram. From what I hear, not a lot of people are even really looking at the website so much. It's more like the Facebook. And to update a website it takes a lot longer than to update a Facebook page. My Facebook has updated pictures, whereas my website had just it had stuff from 10 years ago, and I hadn't really updated it. It's just not as user friendly to update, right?
Yeah, and people misunderstand too. Don't always maybe realize this, but I know with Facebook and Instagram, the funny thing, Facebook bought Instagram, which I didn't know what many years ago. I was like, oh, maybe Facebook ads are really expensive. I'll just go to Instagram and try to do stuff there. But they're both owned. But you can literally, I think, if you have a Facebook page and you have an Instagram profile, you can actually, do your social media posting through, that portal there. So you don't really, so when it updates your Facebook, it automatically updates your Instagram or vice versa, so that people don't even know. That's probably a good productivity hack to really figure out, right?
Yeah, they're actually amazing. I always share my stuff. I share it through both. So I'll share it from my Facebook to my Instagram to my business Instagram to my business on Facebook, and then I'll just share it to my personal, and then I started up another personal account recently that I just want to keep more like professional. And I just use it to kind of like, it's almost like a cross reference. Like I've noticed even something, it might sound funny, but like I'm big into fitness and stuff and martial arts. And I noticed even if I post something about martial arts or fitness, I'll get like work through that because somebody will see it and it's like I'm in their head, right? They're like, oh, you do landscaping. And I guess it shows that you're disciplined too. So like they can see who you are, right? Like you're essentially building your own personal brand when you're on a personal account. And I like people can see who you are. So they know you're real. They know that you're there. And I think it gives somebody more comfort with trusting you, right? Because you need to trust someone when you're doing renovations. Like so many things could go wrong on a job and you need to make sure that somebody that you're dealing with is like legitimate and honest and it's going to do the job. And I just find certain posts people respect just over years of having the 3 social media accounts. I know some people use Twitter and stuff like that. I've never gotten into that. I try to avoid being on stuff that is that wastes time. And for me, I just don't see how Twitter would help my landscape company. It just doesn't. I just don't see that doing anything for me. Once again, I don't really use it, so I could be wrong. But I try to limit how much social media I'm using and try to stick to just business.
No, you're not that far off. And I think I'm very similar as well. So, I mean, for my own personal thing, it's Facebook, Instagram, and in some cases, LinkedIn. Those are the only 3 that I'll use. Like you said, for like Twitter, I don't know. To me, it seems like a very, it's almost like a volcano on Twitter. So it's like, you know, I don't really want to go into that space, right? Because I'd rather keep it something simple from a business side, keep it very professional. So, yeah, I totally agree with you on that one.
Now it's time for tips from the pro.
Let me get your take on the actual industry itself. So the whole landscaping industry, how has it changed over the last few years, and where do you see it going?
The products are a lot nicer now. I wouldn't say the last few years they've engineered some newer stuff that's nice. It's just they come out with like a lot nicer products. Like when we first started doing it, it was like they were like rectangle herringbone pattern bricks, and they were very basic and very like industrial looking. And now it's like you can make your house look amazing with the stuff that's coming out now. Plus, in the beginning, there wasn't really a lot of people using like natural like armor stones, and now you like almost everybody, maybe 1 out of like 10 people I go and quote doesn't like the armor stones, but the majority of people really like natural stone and armor stones the way it looks.
So define the difference. So what is armor stone? So all I know from my limited knowledge of this is that it's a very strong, really strong, robust stone, right?
Yeah, they're just big, like nice looking rocks. They usually come from up north or they're shipped in from other countries, and they're very heavy. You can use them to like build retaining walls like that. We use blocks way back when we used to use blocks. This would have been like maybe like 10, 15 years ago, we were using blocks for a lot of our stuff, but now like armor rocks are just way stronger. You can build like nice gardens with them. You can support like a set of steps and have like a nice entrance going towards your house with them. They're just, it's a really good option for retaining, and it looks really nice. It complements interlock really nice. And they come in like decent, like nice looking, like modern like colors, right? Like a lot of people go with gray nowadays. They have like nice veins in them. They have some beige ones, and then they have some brown ones. So it pretty much matches like every color scheme.
Interesting. No, that's good to hear, right? So interesting. Yeah, because I heard armor stone, and yeah, remember for the listeners, armor stone is not something you would put on the floor. You wouldn't put them as interlock, and these are like literally ginormous structures that can, like you said, support like a retaining wall, but it also looks nice, and it's extremely heavy, which is why I guess the properties of it being as a good retaining structure, it's just that nothing's really going to push it, really.
Yeah, they're like thousands of pounds, so like you're not moving them. Some of them are like 500, and some of them are like 1,000. Like you're moving them with a machine. Some of them you can't even move with smaller machines.
Well, Joe's being modest. He can probably lift an armor stone, just walk it from his car over. So, you know, if you see Joe, he can carry armor stone.
I'm not going to lie. I've done some jobs where I've actually done some of it by hand, but they just like, it didn't make sense to bring a machine in. So I've done stuff by hand, and I kind of like doing that kind of stuff sometimes. I feel like I'm like a caveman or something.
No, excellent. So one question I always like to ask, I'll ask the guests, and like I said, it's also for the goal of the podcast. We're trying to educate, motivate, I guess, people to do their own business, whether it's side or full time, but also to know what the real stories, right? Not just all the good stuff, but also some of the things, some of the challenges. So I guess so. Joe, in this case, so you've been doing this a while. What has kind of been like your biggest failure in the business, but also your greatest success so far?
My biggest failure has been in the past. I've taken on too many jobs at once because of my ambition, and I've taken longer to do jobs, and there was a lot of stress involved. And I empathize with the customers, and they empathize with me. Like, you have to kind of mediate, but I've had that in the past where I've just taken on too much work, and then on top of it, like, you have to do all of the other things, like you have to do your numbers, your accounting. Like, I mean, you have an accountant, but like, you have to, everything is on you. And basically, like, it's whatever you put into it. So if you're out there at like 7 a.m. and you're working like 10-hour days and you're effective with your guys and you plan things out correctly, things are good. But if you ever slack off, or if you're not as organized, which I don't care what anybody says, everybody has been there. We're not flawless. No human being is flawless. As much as we say that, it's not flawless. So that is a challenge too. Like, you want to make sure that you're covering everything. And then plus, it's a physical job, so it's hard work. Quoting can be challenging sometimes because, like, we have a standard that we charge, and I'm not in the business to be competing with prices. Like, I do the best that I can, and I try to save the most amount of money. But there's a certain level where we have a standard, and I want things to be done properly, and I don't want someone looking at my work and thinking I did a hack job. And I find a lot of these other companies that rush things, they just want to make the money and leave, and a lot of them will charge less. I don't even know how they're doing it, but that's another challenge, is competing. Like, I find when I'm doing like cold calls, if it's not a referral, it's like, sometimes I feel like I'm almost competing, and I'm not really a big fan of competing in prices. I do the best that I can to save as much money, but and that's not the type of business I'm trying to run. I'm not trying to run like a bargain basement business. I'm trying to I'm doing the best work I can, and I want it to look nice. Like, no matter what house it is, even if it's like a small townhouse, I want whatever I put on the house to look nice and to last a long time.
No. I mean, you're perfect. You're totally justifying that logic too, because yeah, I can relate a little bit, because when I used to run my mobile detailing business, when I used to clean cars, I used to clean detail cars. So a lot of clients or prospects who come up to me and they say, I used to have a website. I had all my prices listed there. So you kind of knew what you were getting. And some of them be like, oh, but I know a guy down the street for like, $20 less. Can you do that? Or $50 less. Can you do that? And I'm like, I always told them, you know what? I think they might be a better fit for you, right? Because at the end of the day, it's still the same level of work, still the same level of labor, regardless of whatever you charge, right? So you have to be very cognizant of how you price things, but also to know you don't want to race to the bottom, right? That's the problem when you want to see, can you do it less? Because that's what, I mean, clients are always going to ask that. That's a normal thing. Because I think the standard thing is, if we can get, a Tesla for a Honda Civic price, then, why don't we? Right. But then you start, when you're really starting to get that nitpicky, where you're like, you're really trying to undercut what this provider like yourself is doing, it doesn't do you many favors, because one, you're not going to be happy with the quality of the work, right? The material they might use might not be the best. So then it might not be as long lasting, because you can tell with Joe, like, he makes sure that the products that he's putting on a job is of good quality. He's not going to get the cheapest stuff out there just for the sake of it, right?
No, and the thing is too, even with cheap quality stuff, like, you can get cheap quality product, you're still going to pay the same for the labor. So you might as well pay the extra little bit to get the nicer stuff. It's more the labor and like what it takes to do the job properly. And we got to pay people that work for us, and we got to pay for our bills too. Like I don't know how some of these companies do what they do. Like I've listened to some of the pricing, and I don't know if somebody's just saying this to me to get a cheaper price out of me, but some of the prices I've heard that people are doing for the same job that I'm offering. The thing is, someone can tell you they're going to do all these things, and then they end up delivering something completely different. And I think that's what usually happens with the pricing. But I break everything down. Like I literally break down all the pricing. I show exactly where the money's going. And like it's stuff that I can, because we've done it for so long, I can literally just like refer to another house that we've done and I can show them the process and why it costs what it costs. Like I've had people question certain things and I've answered them and then they understood. They're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like we charge for excavation and stone and stuff. Some companies just put it all in 1 square foot price. I separate it. I show that, there's a bin coming out of here. There's stone that has to go in here. There's preparation and then the interlocking. So I kind of separate everything. Some companies just do everything in one lump sum. I separate everything.
Do you have a small business story to share? The S.M.E. Stories podcast is looking for entrepreneurs to share their tales of success, failure, and everything. If you're interested in being a guest on our show or know someone would be a great fit, please contact us at northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com. That's northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com.
Interesting. So, and I guess it's more, there's more transparency when you kind of separate. Now you're not going to go all the way to the points of like nuts and bolts and to the point, but you can definitely talk about different phases of it. So if the job is going to cost $10K, here's how much, here is the breakdowns of, excavation is going to cost this much. And then the interlocking is this much. Here's the labor cost. So you can kind of see it, right? So it's not like they're saying that they're putting on one lump sum and when they give you the deposit, that's going to go into Joe's Tesla fund, right? So it's nothing like that.
Yeah, no, not like that at all.
Excellent. So
definitely not like that.
So now we're going to go from the tips from the pro segment. So Joe, this is the part of the show where, we have an aspiring, entrepreneur that maybe wants to get into landscaping. They want to start in this business. So they might have very specific questions. So being a pro, this is where we start to ask you, okay, if you were to start over again and how you would advise a new person, here's how it would be. So question number 1. So I'm new to this. Should I diversify my offerings or should I try to keep it simple? Or so let's say, because obviously with outdoor landscaping, it's a lot of different things. You got driveways, you got backyards, porches, patios. Is there anything that if someone's new, should they try to just focus on just one of those pieces or should they try to do a lot of different ones?
Well, I think you could do all of the landscaping part. I just wouldn't be like a person that's doing landscaping and then focusing on other parts of the trade, like other trades. Like I wouldn't be doing multiple trades. I try to get good at one.
Right.
I try to focus on one thing and get good at it because it takes a long time to get good at a skill. It's not like, unless you were like a carpenter before or like an electrician before, that's a different story. But like, I would try to learn one thing and get really good at it first.
Is there a particular niche that you find within your space of all the different jobs that you have that would be probably like a good job that maybe someone who's just getting started should even go into? Would it be a patio? Would it just be like a small backyard type of setting, or should they try to do driveways? I mean, what's your take on that?
If you're just starting out, I would just start out with just trying to do basic. Like if they're trying to build the skill, I would just try to do like basic, like a basic patio and a basic walkway, and try to learn how to build steps, because that's the basic bare minimum that you need to know, right? If you're doing walkways and patios, because people are asking for walkways, patios. Most of the time people aren't asking for driveways because it's really expensive to do all stone driveway. Usually people just do the edges and then get the middle asphalt. But yeah, I would learn how to do that stuff. The excavation is like, I would learn how to do that first. Then I would learn how to do, the stonework. But you can also sub out an excavation person. Like if you know someone that has a machine, you could sub them out and pay them and then do the other stuff if you're good at that, and then slowly learn how to do it, because it takes a little bit of time to learn that stuff.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point, is to know that it's okay to outsource. I think that the challenge that most small business owners start with is that they feel they got to do everything themselves. I mean, for something like this as well, if you know someone who can do, like you said, excavation, that's a very big part of the job too, right? Because you got to make sure you dig deep enough in, and God forbid you're hand shoveling that whole thing. It's not the most fun, but I always say that it's better to get, to outsource that so you guys can split the fees versus, trying to do the whole thing yourself, and then you're stressed, and then you're tired, your back is sore and everything. Is it really worth it to not just share? It's 50% of something versus 100% of nothing, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
So what should be the first equipment I should buy first?
I would definitely, you need like a Bobcat. Well, you don't need to buy a Bobcat. You can rent that. So you don't necessarily need to buy that. I would definitely have a truck. You need a truck, trailer, like a dump trailer, like a 5-ton is good enough to start. And then you need saws. You need like a cutoff saw.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably have one or two. So you have a backup, compactor. You need rake, shovels, string lines, good.
So all those are great, Joe, but which would be the first one in your opinion if you were to start over again? What would you get first? Obviously, you said you could rent the Bobcat, but I know you need all of them, but if you only can pick a little bit and have to reuse just whatever you have at home, what would be the first thing you'd get?
You definitely need a truck.
There we go. Truck it is, because
you don't have a truck. What are you going to do? You're going to strap it to the head of a Mitsubishi like Lancer, right?
No, we're talking about it's a Mini Cooper, man. That's what I'm going to be using, right? So,
yeah, right.
Can you imagine armor stone inside a Mini Cooper? I'm just kind of curious how that would work.
I've seen guys literally load stone in the back of car.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not even kidding. I've seen it. I don't know what they were doing. They probably destroyed their suspension, but I've seen people do it.
Wow. Well, definitely get a truck. That's for sure. So next question there, Joe. So in your opinion, what is the threshold of keeping, like, I would just say, like, so how many jobs should you have like in the pipeline to actually bring on people as an employee versus keeping them just as a contractor or a subcontract?
How many jobs you should have to keep people busy?
Yeah. So, I mean, because the challenge is obviously when it comes to hiring, when you start to bring people on, you want to make sure you have enough work in the pipeline so that they're busy, right? Because now you're paying, they have a salary or whatever the case may be, you're paying them hourly versus, should you just keep very lean and just only bring them in just for when you have a job ready? What's your opinion?
Yeah. The problem with that is you can do that in the beginning, but you're always going to be in between people and you're never going to get like quality people if you do that. You need to have people that you can have all year consistently. So you need to have, it could be one job at once. Like, I mean, one job could last you a month. It could last you even longer, just depending on how big it is. If it's a really big job. And if you have a couple of guys, they're going to be working every day on that job. And then you could have 3 jobs that are smaller and they're all in the same area. And you could have, the guys all working on those jobs as well and keeping them busy.
Do you find that the labor costs have gone up over the last year or so? I mean, I've always heard people saying that they're having a hard time trying to find the right people.
Well, I think it's a combination of like, you can't blame just the people that you're hiring. Like, you have a part in that. Depends on how you're treating people, how you're presenting them, how you're paying them. I do find that people nowadays, like compared to like 10 years ago, things have changed a lot in terms of morale and work ethic. And I don't entirely blame that on people. Like, I think that the way society has gone, people's work ethic is degrading a lot. And part of it is like social media. Part of it is this COVID thing that has gone on where, a lot of people were getting benefits. And I'm somebody that I didn't collect any benefits during COVID, like nothing. I had to like pay my bills and I didn't even apply. But I did notice a lot of people want to work for cash and get paid, like they wanted to get paid benefits. And I'm like, they wanted their COVID benefits on the side. And I'm like, no, we can't do that. We're running a legitimate business. And I found it was a lot harder to find people to help. There's a lot of people sitting on the sidelines without work right now, and they don't want to work for I don't know what they're expecting in terms of wage. I do get it that it's really expensive to live right now, but there's only so much you can pay someone if they don't have skills. Like if you can't leave them on the job to do everything, you can't, it's not like you can pay them like $30 an hour and they can't do a lot of things. Like that's, you need a skill to be able to get paid that much. And I find like a lot of people expect to get more money because of inflation and because the minimum wage is risen. Like that's another thing. It's going up to $15.50. I don't know if it already has, but I saw that it's going up to $15.50, and this inflation is creating a little bit of an issue as well.
Yeah, I mean,
I found guys, like it's taken a long time, and it takes a really long time to be able to find people that will stick around. Like I have like 2 guys now that I know are going to stick around. And sometimes it's better just to have a couple of guys. Like you can have 5 people working on a job, which I have, but if 2 of them aren't working, or if they're like, you know, when you leave, they're not doing the job and they don't care, they can cause problems for everybody else. They can slow everybody else down. And then it's like you only have you and nobody else and you're babysitting. So it's like, it's better to take care of a couple of guys, pay them properly and treat them properly and do good work than to have 10 people and everybody's all over the place.
so start lean, right? So don't feel like you need to, you know, hire a bunch of, let's say, high school students doing summer job, like a part-time, like a summertime job, versus, you know, rather to find really good people that, like you said, that are hardworking, they're very talented in that respect, and treat them, and then slowly bring in people, but don't get into the rush of, oh, I want to have X number of jobs, so I got to have X number of resources that can cover all these different jobs, right? So,
yeah, if you're physical and like cognitive, and you're like really like good with your hands, and you know what you're doing, and you can do a lot of stuff by yourself. You don't even need to have anybody in the beginning. You can literally just do everything by yourself. I've gone periods where I've done everything by myself, and it takes longer, but you just take your time and get it done and tell your customers, listen, a lot of customers understand nowadays when you say, hey, you know, we're short on people. It's just me today. Yeah, a lot of people understand. That's another thing too with now, the way people are now is people are a lot more like lackadaisy with working. Like they'll show up one day and then the next day they don't show up. It's like, I don't know, I feel like the way like our parents' generation probably grew up is a lot different than ours now. Like before, people used to be really consistent with work and like not calling in sick and stuff. Now, especially since COVID has happened, that's degraded a lot.
Hey, do you need an error-free website? Do you need transcription that's accurate and on time? Would you like to remove noise from your video or audio recording? Do you need a spokesperson for your business? If so, we can help. At Northway Capital Group, we are happy to announce that we are now providing website testing services, audio transcriptions, and audio cleanup, as well as spokesperson services. We would love to help you on your next project. Contact us for more information at northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com.
yeah, it's unfortunate, right? I don't know if it's people, some of it is maybe people's legitimate fears. Others, people might just be milking the, you know, oh, I get X number of sick days a year, so might as well just load them up, right? Use them all up before all that sort of stuff, which is sad because, you know what, taking a day off once in a while because, you know, you need to recharge, that's fine. But if you're just doing it just for the sake of, oh, well, I know I'm entitled to all these days, I might as well just use them all up, and, you know, and you're not putting in good quality work, then it's kind of you got to scratch your head a little bit there. So, all right, next question there, Joe. So, as a landscaper, is there any special insurance that you guys have to get?
Yeah, it's just basic insurance that I get from my insurance company that covers something goes wrong on the job. Nothing anything spectacular. It's just what the insurance company recommended me get. So I have just like a basic insurance for landscaping, and then it's also for like if you have tools in the back of your truck, you know, if something goes missing, supposed to cover that.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's like WSIB if you have if you have people on site and stuff like that.
That's a given. I thought you meant more just in terms of like an insurance company. I'll also like obviously your vehicle and my trailer is insured for commercial. So you kind of need to have those things as well to make sure that you know, if something goes wrong. I think it's also for if somebody, you know, trips on something you know, if they go to court, the insurance company covers.
Yeah, and the general liability, I think, is definitely something that you got to make sure, at bare minimum, have something like that. The God forbid someone gets hurt.
I think it's two million. I'm not 100% sure. I think it's like 2 million, up to 2 million or something like that.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, yeah, we're not insurance. Like Joe and I, we're not insurance advisors. So obviously, we want to say talk to an insurance, advisor on that. But yeah, from what I've heard from various owners, 2 million seems to be like the minimum. Because not to say that we're all going to be going to court anytime soon, knock on wood, but apparently, before then, if you only got like $1 million general liability, the minute you get sued, that gets chewed up fairly quickly in the court system, right? So,
especially if there's medical problem, like if someone has a medical problem, the problem is that some people, if they get hurt, they can't. Some people may never be able to work again. So you need to like compensate them, and I think it's 2 million. I'm not sure if it's 10 million. I know like 2 million was like, I think that's a house insurance too, right?
Could be. I wouldn't be surprised.
Like when you have house insurance, but it might be more. It might have been more. I don't quote me. I believe it's between like 2 and 10 million from.
Yeah, and like I said, talk to the right advisor. They'll let you know what the right amount is. But yeah, because you can't just have a small policy and then when you use up the money, you can just try to add to it. It's like you're paying rest out of pocket, so it's best to make sure you have the right amount of coverage. So excellent. All right, last question on this one here for this one. What is your best strategy to deal with difficult clients?
Talk to them. See what the concern is. Stay calm. Be diplomatic. Don't act insecure with them. It's business. It's not personal. If somebody gets mad at you based on a business transaction, doesn't mean that they're claiming thing against you. Like you can't. Reacting emotionally is really bad. It's not. Anytime you react emotionally, it's better to just, even if someone's like angry at you, you just gotta be calm. And most of the time, if somebody's being unreasonable, they'll usually see it. I see the good in people, so most of the time it works out. Sometimes you get people that are just really difficult to deal with, but you just have to stay cool with them and diplomatic.
Yeah, I mean, like if you want the relationship to go even sour, by all means, please just start a heated conversation with someone. If you want it to get worse, then get very personal with them. That's the way to expedite this relationship even burning up even more, right? So you said service with a smile is sometimes some of the guests have recommended is to make sure you're very upfront, like you said, talk to them like a regular person, try to see it from their shoes if you can, and like you said, just make sure you're professional because they'll remember your professionalism. They will also remember if you're a jerk to them, right? And if you remember back in the day, Joe, where before social media, if someone wanted to complain, let's say someone found you through the Yellow Pages and they had a bad experience with you, they might just tell only their immediate friends and family. Nowadays, with Yelp and all these and Google reviews and stuff like that, people can now influence that rating on your entire company. So, stay professional. And don't, like you said, don't get personal with it because it's not going to go well. It's not going to go well at all.
No, definitely not.
So these are a couple more of the lighter questions here. So, because you're really busy, you're doing a lot of work. What's your work-life balance like? How do you balance friends, family, loved ones, and this business? Because, this is very, like you said, sometimes you're on site for almost the entire day, sometimes maybe 10-hour days.
Well, I might be the wrong person to ask that because I'm not married. I'm not married and I don't have kids. So maybe I'm not very good at that part. I have a family and like I do train, like I do fill my extra time with like martial arts and stuff like that. So and exercise. So I just try to make sure that I always have like at least an hour of the day to like focus on myself because it can't all be work. You'll have a breakdown. It don't work.
Right.
If you push yourself too hard, you need to have some downtime and like you can control that. So just be effective with your time. If you're not effective with your time and you're just dragging your feet all day, you just need to have a plan. If you have a plan, you can do anything. Like I always hear people say they don't have time to exercise. They don't have time to do this. They don't have time to do that. You can make time for things. You just have to plan them in your day.
Yeah.
You have to plan correctly. Wake up at the right times. Time things correctly. If you get things done within, and we're not perfect, sometimes it doesn't work out like that, but you do your best, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And no one's flawless. Like you said, we're not flawless people when it comes to this. Even everyone has different suggestions how to try to balance it. But the bottom line is, like you said, just make time in whatever way, shape, or form it is, whether it's an hour or if it's like meeting with friends or family or loved ones, if it's just like maybe just an hour or two on the weekends, if that's the only time, but at least try to have something there. So it's something that I think, especially if you start a business, it's so easy to just get so immersed in it that you forget about family and friends, right? Because you're just focused on building your business, running your business, dealing with all the issues and all that sort of stuff. But when you don't have time to decompress, you can talk about, I think like when one of my previous guys mentioned, it's kind of like you're trying to run a marathon at a sprint's pace.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense, right?
No, it doesn't. You'll get burned out and then you won't have any energy to finish.
Exactly. All right. So what has been like the funniest story that you've been working on, like through all the jobs you've done? You know, like hundreds upon thousands of jobs. Can you share any type of one of the funniest stories that you've had on a job site?
I don't know. I'm trying to think right now. Something that was funny.
And family friendly. So we'll keep it between those ones. Yes.
Well, I have a relative that, so my family's Italian. I have a relative that's not the greatest at literacy. So he put a sign up on one of the jobs going into the pool area, and it said no entry or else, but he spelled it wrong. It was no entry or else, and the customer came out and goes, "I think that's one of my kids wrote on one of your." Like, nah, for sure that was my cousin, and I just started laughing, and we all started laughing. Yeah, it was me, and we all started laughing.
Oh my goodness! So they thought that your sign was vandalized by someone, by maybe their kids.
One of their kids. It was in crayon, right?
Wow!
I'm not going to say any names, but it was funny. It was a long time ago, but it was a funny one.
Now it's time for the rapid fire round.
All right, question number 1. What would your 15-year-old self imagine you'd be doing right now?
The same thing that I'm doing right now.
Oh, that's a great answer. Excellent. All right, next question. Okay, would you rather have a voice like Gilbert Gottfried or Fran Drescher?
Gilbert Gottfried actually doesn't really sound like that, so I'd like to be him. I don't think I'd want to sound like Fran Drescher. That wouldn't match my physique.
Even her voice doesn't even sound like that too. So it's like when they're in the performance mode, they really crank it up a notch. But I've yet to hear Gilbert Gottfried like a natural voice.
I don't know. He's funny, so I feel like if I had his voice, I could do voiceover work. So I'd rather Gilbert Gottfried.
Excellent. I would probably say the same thing. So, all right, what is your favorite microwavable food?
My favorite microwavable food?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I don't know, like leftover, like lasagna or something like that.
Not bad. Leftover lasagna. For some reason, mine, I can actually make a 60-second, I guess like a chocolate chip cake, a mug cake. So you make it in a mug. So that's kind of my thing if I can make it, because it doesn't take me long. And we try to be more keto-ish, like Mrs. K, my wife, tries to make us do that. So then I look for recipes like that. But 60-second, that's one of my favorite ones. But excellent. Okay. Now, Joe, do you have a signature move or a quirk that people notice and comment on?
A signature move or a quirk? Well, this doesn't relate to my business, but I get made fun of for the faces I make when I train jiu-jitsu.
Oh, looks like you're trying to lift armor stone. Is that what that face you look like?
No, I think I probably look crazy, but I'm in the middle of getting choked. So,
so people notice the face. So what belt are you right now in jiu-jitsu?
I'm getting pretty close to purple, but I'm like black and blue belt with 4 stripes. I have to like differentiate that because if anybody doesn't know, it takes a really long. I've been in the blue belt for like 7 years.
Wow, that's great. So you're a 4-stripe blue belt, and yeah, people. It's not like karate where you can probably fast track your way to getting different colors. In the jiu-jitsu space, things take a lot longer, and it's not like you have to go to every class just to get attendance points that you'll get a belt. It's like, you have to the professor or the instructor, for those who are not familiar, they really have to make sure that you're ready before you're ready to get the next belt. So you have to get 4 stripes before you're even ready for another belt. Like Mrs. K right now, she's a 4-stripe white belt. She's been doing this since maybe 2019 or so. So I'm very excited for her to get her blue belt. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah. And I guess she's scared about the Shark Tank or whatever people call it.
The corridor.
That's what when you guys do it, it's called the corridor.
Yeah, not everybody does it. They did it to me when I got my blue belt. It's when everybody whips you in the back, but you could choose if you want to do it or not.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and for those who are familiar with the sometimes the Shark Tank or the Shark Pit or whatever you call it, it's usually, I think, for some of the gradings, it could be almost like an hour it's definitely over an hour, right, Joe? It's like to do some of these tests, right?
Yeah, I actually came from a gym where they kind of did it a little bit differently. My first gym. I'm at a gym now where they do like formal grading, but my other gym, like you could just show up one day and they just thought you were ready and they would bump you up.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was a little bit different. So I haven't actually seen how they grade. Like I've seen them grade. Like I've seen that we did have a formal grading, but like you could get bumped up without even doing all of that. They usually just watch your technique. My gym now, there's grading.
Yeah.
And we do Shark Tank there as well.
Yeah.
Where you're in there for an hour. It depends. Like sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's a half an hour, and you're in the middle. You're either in like the guard or you're doing takedown. And you stay in the middle if you keep going.
Yeah. And so for those who are not familiar with it, is that it's like a Shark Tank where you basically have to roll for almost the entire time. And you're not just going up against like beginners and white belts. Sometimes you might, because when Mrs. K actually started jiu-jitsu and she was asked to go to a grading, what the professor was telling her is that, we just need more women to help some of these people who are testing for belts, right? So she thought, okay, I'm just going there to help, test other people. And then she came back and then she just got her first white stripe. And then she looked at me, she's like, look what I got. And she was so proud of that. But to actually get a belt, it's a bit of a harder story because you're going to be going up against a lot of, I guess, what they call sharks. So you're going to be dealing with purple belts like soon to be Joe. Then you got brown belts and maybe even roll with some black belts. And they will definitely push you to the point because you don't really get much of a break. It's not like you can do a 2-minute roll and then get a 5-minute break. You're going there for almost like half hour and a half straight. So yeah, that's a bit, that's tough. So back to the rapid fire stuff. It's the choke face that you make. All right. Excellent. So last question I got on this one, Joe, is what is your theme song and why? So when you're walking down the sidewalk, if that song hits, when people hear it, they know Joe is coming. What song is that?
Right now, my theme song is, I listen to a lot of black metal right now. So it'd be something by like Deepu Borgir, which I probably nobody that's listening even knows who they are. They're a band from Norway.
Okay.
It's pretty intense, but I think it's weird. That's like getting older. I'm into more like intense metal than I was like when I was younger. Like, I just feel like as life gets more challenging, it gives me power. Like when I go run, I listen to this kind of music. Like I listen to Behemoth too. Like I'm really big into that kind of music. I like the symbolism too. I find it interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, all right, Joel, well, this has been awesome experience, my friend. So is there any other advice you have for any of the listeners and where can they find you?
So I'm on, I have Facebook and Instagram, Sonscape Interlock and Landscape Solutions. You can see a lot of the work that's on there. And I am always putting stories up and updating, as well as my personal Joseph Galluzzo. You can find me on there. Advice is just, if you're a business owner, just take it one step at a time and, one step at a time. You don't climb the mountain by looking at the whole thing. You do one rock at a time, right?
Great quote, Joe. Thanks for coming on, my friend.
Thank you, Ken.
All right, guys, that was episode with Joe Galluzzo. And I think you can learn a lot from this. And I know I learned a lot from this episode. And I think the most important thing I learned was this whole episode, he's been doing this for so long. It wasn't like he just suddenly started a business. He's been doing this for well over 16 years. I think almost 20 years even. The best note I got from the episode with Joe is that know your limit. And what I mean by that is, especially in the beginning of the business, is to, as an owner, is to try and land as many clients as possible to get that sale, which is good. And I think that's what we should all be focused on in terms of doing that. But know your limit of how many you can reasonably support. Right now, you heard the part of the episode where Joe was saying that he was, he prefers to stay on the job. Like he does not want to be, because the common trend in the construction space is, you're working several jobs at once. So you might have a couple of crews and yourself working on a few different things. So when people see some of those renovation shows that we see on TV now, they're filming that thing in maybe 30, 45-minute episodes or hour episodes or whatever. And it looks like they were there for the entire time, when in actuality, they're not. They might be just there for like an hour or two for that one particular day of filming, right? And you're not going to see that. So trying to manage multiple jobs at once. So in this case, in other cases, managing multiple clients at once, you need to know what your limit is. As much as I would love to say, I would love to have 100 clients, all paying me really good money. But if I can't support them, if I cannot deal with that many clients, then I'm servicing nobody, right? Because then at that point, you're going to start losing clients, because if clients don't feel valued for the service that you are providing them, they're going to want to leave. So to ensure that, I would say, if you don't know where to start, of how many you can reasonably handle, I would say you just keep adding that one extra client until you can start to feel that, okay, I think this is my limit. I don't know if that's 5 clients at a time, 10 clients at a time, 20 clients at a time, whatever the number is. Just really know that. And then maybe slow down your marketing, right? I know for some marketing people, they might say, that's nuts, you got to keep it up. It's either that, once you hit your limit, you can do one of two things. One, scale back your marketing so you can really figure out if that's the real number of clients you can manage. Or 2, start to bring people on board to help distribute the workload. I think that's very important, because I can imagine for some other people that have been through this in other ways, is that you'll find a really good company that will sell you the moon and just to land your sale, and you feel all good about it. But when the service starts to dwindle and you're trying to reach out to them for issue resolution and they're becoming very quiet, they're taking longer to respond, it develops a really sour taste in your mouth. So let's not do that, small business owners, okay? So find out what your limit is and then adjust what you need to adjust. Add more, reduce your marketing so you don't get as many calls or as many emails coming in until you've leveled it. And once you're satisfied with the support you're able to provide, then take on another client. So don't rush to get all these clients. And also remember, you don't have to get all the clients, because some of the clients you probably don't want to deal with in the first place. They could be a pain in the butt to deal with. So know your limit and stay within it. All right, guys, I had a great time filming this episode, and I hope you did as well. So I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you for listening to the S.M.E Stories podcast, which is owned by Northway Capital Group. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Northway Capital Group.